Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cryptids and Critters Paranormal. I'm your host, the Deuster. It is a New Year's Day, the first day of 2024. I have a pretty full schedule for the remainder of the week, so I may not be able to get on here and do another video drop. I thought I'd go ahead and get this one dropped today while I had time, and everybody's kind of kicked back and resting from the New Year's. A murder occurred in 1882, and it was found doing research on my book, Execution of Murder. If you would like any of my books, they're available on Amazon. I also have some here at the house I can sign and mail out to you. If you do want a signed copy of one of my books, shoot me an email at ghosthunter911@gmail.com. It is ghosthunter911@gmail.com, and I'll make sure you get a signed copy delivered to your mailbox. This murder I'm going to talk to you about today occurred in 1882, and like I said, it was a distant relative of mine, Dr. John Nuckolls, and he was killed on Main Street in Springfield. And so here's what I had found doing my research. At first, it seemed like a marriage made in heaven. That's how Dr. John Nuckolls felt when he married Laura Hopkins Jones in 1879. Laura was the daughter of Asa Hopkins of Springfield and was recently divorced from her first husband. Now, immediately after their marriage, the newlyweds moved into a huge two-story house situated high atop Pull-Tight Hill on 5th Avenue East in Springfield. Laura became pregnant, and 9 months later, she delivered to her husband a baby boy whom she named Asa Hopkins Nuckolls. He was named after Laura's father. For some unknown reason, shortly after the birth of their son, Laura became very moody and depressed, and their marriage took a sharp turn for the worst. They quarreled constantly, and Dr. Nuckolls soon found out why her first marriage had ended so abruptly. She was next to impossible to live with. She nagged him constantly and even went as far as claiming that their house was haunted. It was the general consensus that Laura herself was the instigator of the strange noises heard in the house, doing so in an attempt to draw attention and sympathy. It was widely speculated that Laura had suspended a small ball and a cord from beneath her dress, and as she moved through the house, the ball would bounce against the floor, thereby producing a tapping noise beneath her. Afterwards, the neighbors tended to shy away from her and disregarded her as a lunatic. By this time, Dr. Nuckolls' nerves had taken all they could stand, and it was rumored that he turned to drinking. Unable to salvage what was left of their marriage, they separated, and Laura took her son and moved back into their home of her parents. The following afternoon, after an extremely difficult day at the office, Dr. Nuckolls met Hopkins on Main Street and asked permission to come to the house and see his son. Nuckolls was not in the best of moods, and it only compounded the issue when Dr. Hopkins denied him the right to see his child. Dr. Nuckolls lost his temper, pulled a gun, and threatened to kill him if he didn't let him see his son. Luckily, Sheriff Ben Boone was close by and managed to get between them. Nuckolls attempted to fire the pistol over Boone's shoulder, but Boone grabbed his arm and managed to prevent it. Boone warned Dr. Nuckolls that if you shoot him, you'll have the whole damn Hopkins family after you. Dr. Nuckolls replied, "If you mean that damn Bunch Hopkins, I'll kill him too." Asa Hopkins wasted no time in contacting his son, Samuel Bunch Hopkins, who lived in Nashville, who was outraged and swore he would avenge his father. After all, he had been acquitted of murdering another Springfield resident, E.C. Kirk, a few years before. He had no problem doing it again. That afternoon, on February 27, 1882, Bunch Hopkins arrived on the train from Nashville and met up with brothers Harry and John Hooper, who ran a saloon on Main Street. After visiting with the Hopkins for a while, the trio looked around Springfield and came up with a diabolical scheme. On the south end of Main Street, across the railroad tracks, stood a dwelling that was used as a schoolhouse, and located next door was a Methodist church. A couple hours before sunrise the following morning, the streets were all but deserted as the trio doused the interior of the buildings with coal oil, then torching, first the church, then the schoolhouse. As the flames quickly spread, the trio disappeared into the darkness. It would be several more minutes before the fire would be discovered, and this would give them ample time to make their way back into the heart of town. There could be no witnesses to what was about to happen, thus the diversion to avert attention elsewhere. Robertson County had years ago outgrown the old jail that was situated on 7th Avenue East and Main Street. And it was just before the war between the states, a larger jail was built on what was now known as Willow Street. And the old jail building sat empty and abandoned. It was in this building on Main Street that Hopkins set up his ambush. Climbing the stairway and walking to an open window, he removed a double-barrel shotgun from beneath his overcoat. He then loaded 2 shells into the barrels and patiently waited for his victim. Somewhere to the south of their vantage point, someone yelled, "Fire! Fire!" Walking to his office that morning, Dr. Nuckolls rounded the corner at 5th Avenue and Main and instantly noticed something odd. Main Street, usually bustling with activity at this time of day, was completely deserted. Most of the stores he walked past were closed and locked. Looking further down Main Street, he soon realized why. The flames were towering over the treetops, and 2 large plumes of smoke billowed high into the air. That explained it. Something was burning, and the townspeople and merchants were fighting the fire. And it was not unusual for the merchants to close their doors in such an emergency and perform their civic duty. Breaking into a run, he was approaching the intersection of 7th Avenue when the first shotgun blast hit him, knocking him up against a building. He slumped down, clutching his left side. Then another blast hit him in the shoulder and neck. He tried to yell, but his windpipe was severed from a second blast, and only a gurgle came forth from what was left of his throat. As he lay dying on the sidewalk, he glanced up toward the old jail, and the last image Dr. Nuckolls saw was Hopkins leering down at him, holding the shotgun. Hopkins and his partners in crime quickly left the old jail and made their way to the depot, stopping only for a minute to watch the fire consume what was left of the buildings. There had been no witnesses, and even if anyone had seen him, they could not prove a thing. Dr. John Nuckolls was more than likely buried in the old Cheatham City Cemetery in Springfield in an unmarked grave. In the early 1950s, the remains of those buried at the old Cheatham Cemetery were exhumed and reinterred in Elmwood Cemetery to make way for a new school. They named this school Cheatham Park. Since his grave was unmarked, it is not certain if his remains were even moved or not. Several burials were missed in the relocation, and 2 of these missed were discovered during the expansion of the school several years later. On June 14, 1882, Bunch Hopkins, Harry Hooper, and John Hooper were indicted for the first-degree murder of Dr. John Nuckolls. In a separate indictment, Bunch Hopkins, Harry Hooper, and John Hooper were indicted for the arson of the schoolhouse and the church in the town of Springfield. Both were burned by the same act of arson. Even though it involved murder, Hopkins and the Hooper brothers somehow managed to post bail until their case came up the following June. As the cold-blooded murder of Dr. Nuckolls caused such indignation and excitement in the county, Hopkins immediately left the county and went to Nashville. On the hearing a lynch mob was forming, Hopkins surrendered himself to the Davidson County Sheriff and was secured in the Nashville jail for safety. It was from here that Hopkins, along with the Hooper boys, requested a change of venue to Davidson County in absence. Never in the history of the county had anyone filed for a change of venue without being present in person. This caused a lot of controversy within the court system. Davidson County refused to put the case on their docket, citing they had no jurisdiction in the matter. They struck the case from their docket and sent the case back to Robertson County, as Hopkins was still under their jurisdiction. The decision was appealed to the Supreme Court, who reversed the decision and sent the case back to Davidson County, where it was finally placed on their court docket. Davidson County Circuit Judge Tyler denied bail for the defendants, and they were remanded to jail for the duration of the trial, which commenced on March 6, 1883. The trial lasted 3.5 weeks. Many witnesses were called for the defense as well as the prosecution, with 16 attorneys arguing the case. During the trial, the defense claimed that Hopkins was standing on the sidewalk and that Nuckolls was shot while attempting to draw his revolver, forcing Hopkins to fire in self-defense. No one actually saw the shots fired, and much conflicting testimony was produced. The trial jury in Nashville, citing reasonable doubt, returned a not guilty verdict on all counts, resulting in the acquittal of the defendants. In Robertson County, the verdict caused quite a deal of resentment, as Hopkins already had a bad reputation concerning the murder of Springfield resident Edward C. Kirk a few years before. Hopkins hired a Nashville attorney to represent him, and during the trial, the attorney mysteriously fell down the courthouse steps and was killed. Even though the murder occurred on Main Street in front of several witnesses, Hopkins was found not guilty. The citizens of Robertson County were so upset over the not guilty verdict rendered in Nashville that a special indignation meeting was called. It was the largest mass meeting ever held in Robertson County and consisted of many prominent citizens from all over the county. During this assembly, a committee was formed to draft resolutions, and shortly thereafter the following resolution was presented. Whereas one Bunch Hopkins, John and Harry Hooper, have been acquitted of the willful, deliberate, malicious, and premeditated murder of our highly esteemed and justly honored citizen, Dr. John Nuckolls, on the 28th of February, 1882. It becomes our duty as well as our pleasure to set veto upon such unprecedented and reckless usurpation of the laws of our country. Therefore, let it be known that as law-abiding people, do feel inexpressible wrath and indignation at the liberation of these atrocious murderers against the law and the facts in the case. Be it further resolved that we, the people of Robertson County, shall ever regard the jury, and in this declaration, all the Nashville jurors were named in this judicial farce, with the feelings of supreme contempt, and further that they, as well as the perpetrators of this heinous crime, are and will be forever unwelcome guests among our people. Be it further resolved that we, the people of Robertson County, do condemn the parties against which rumors of bribery in this case have circulated until they fairly clear themselves of any participation in this crime, and that if the charge of bribery be true, It is one of the blackest and most deeply criminal conspiracies against the public our county has ever known. They're talking about the bribery. The sheriff and the judge and several more were accused of paying witnesses to falsely testify in favor of Bunch Hopkins. Resolved further that the parties connected with the aforesaid diabolical murder and arson will forever be unwelcome in our county. It was also told that Davidson County jurors that set Hopkins free were warned if they valued their life, they would never set foot in Robertson County again. And after his acquittal, Bunch Hopkins left the area and moved to Texas. And I'm pretty sure the Hooper boys stayed pretty well clear of Robertson County after that. After the school and the church were burned down, the Robertson County commissioners allowed a congregation of the church to meet in the courtroom until their church was rebuilt. No killing has ever occurred in Robertson County that caused more excitement than the murder of Dr. Nuckolls. That is a true story. Like I said, it was in my book, Execution of Murder. If you'd like to get a copy, signed copy, shoot me an email, ghosthunter911@gmail.com, and I will make sure you get a copy delivered to your mailbox. They're also available on Amazon. They're also available at the Robertson County Archives in Springfield and at Moss's Restaurant in Adams, Tennessee. So this is a Dooster. I hope you enjoyed this little story, and we will catch you the next time. Thanks for watching.